Life will always be a roller coaster ride. The good
Yeah.
times will not last long. And I lost my dad to a road accident when I was 3 years old. My mother, who has influenced me the most in my life.
Hmm.
And as I think about her today, she has truly been an epitome of Ma Durga. And my wife, Rashmi, suffered a near fatal brain hemorrhage.
And how are you looking at life? Didn't you question yourself that why do I need to go through all this?
It was a phase when my 7-year-old son was teaching his own mother ABCD. He became the guardian for his own mother. He also was expecting motherly love, right? Which was difficult for him to get, which I was trying to fill in. My son was in the middle of a lot of trauma himself, and he has gone into a shell.
At times, we tend to take life for granted. Everything is as if we are entitled to the good lifestyle. We are entitled for all the good things in our life.
Even though you have the awareness that the soul is ever eternal, pure, and blissful, however, you have been given this wonderful opportunity to come to this planet. How do you want to leave a positive impact?
Hey Abhishek, so finally you're here. Thank you so much for accepting my invitation and be here on the podcast. Such a pleasure having you here.
Hi, Gaurav. Thank you for having me in your podcast. I have been following this series and I have been truly impressed and learned a lot from you and your distinguished guests about life in general. So, really look forward to this conversation.
Yes. And we are catching up after what, 3 years, 4 years?
Yes, that's right.
Yeah, time flies, time flies. And that was pre-pandemic when we caught up at your Flipkart office. And those conversations still linger around. And they continue to inspire me today as well, Abhishek. Thank you for being who you are.
Thank you. Thank you, Gaurav.
So, Abhishek, for our listeners, right, if you can just take us to a memory lane, something that you still remember from your childhood, the traits that you have picked up from there that you continue to leverage today as well.
Well, uh, Gaurav, I grew up in a joint family in Calcutta and I lost my dad to a road accident when I was 3 years old. My family business, and it's a very, very famous name in Calcutta and in that part of East India. It's into food, confectionery, sweets, and savories. And it's about more than a century old now. And my father was a man who was a true visionary, and he built a business which was much ahead of its time in terms of service, in terms of experience, in terms of quality and customer hospitality. Now, imagine a boy 3 years old who lost his father to a tragic road accident. My upbringing was, as you will now foresee in your head, would could have been painful and all of that. To the contrary, it was not. I grew up in a very, very big house on Baligan Circular Road. This bungalow
Mm,
had about 2 floors and a terrace with 7 rooms that housed three of my uncles with their families, my grandparents, my aunt, and us,
mm,
which is my mother, myself, and two siblings. I'm the youngest of the three. So imagine a house which about with about 20 family members in one roof, 4 to 5 servants in the staff quarters. And the advantage of this big house was that, it was inside a lane, not on the main road. And typical to the Calcutta spirit of Adda those days, I'm sure it
mm,
still exists. We had at least 30 children in the colony of the same age group and zest for life.
mm.
So, hence, despite the fact that here I was as a young child who lost his father to a car accident very early in his life, the company of my cousins, alongside the local neighborhood friends, made life exemplary, extremely fun, and worth
Mm,
looking forward to every single
mm.
minute.
Yeah.
And so very early on in life, I had learned the lesson which we call today in Sanskrit Maha Upanishad Vasudeva Kutumbakam, which is, the world is one family. And this one trait has been with me ever since.
Yeah. I think that's what you would have learned by being in a joint family?
Yes.
What is it for a 3 year old to lose his father? Do you remember any such memories from that space?
See, to be honest, I hardly remember him, right?
Mm,
I have very, very faint memories of my father. But
mm,
today, when I am a father myself, and when I was growing up, because we were in a joint family, I used to look up to my cousins and kind of fatherly love that they used to get.
mm,
Right? There was a bit of uneasiness, a bit of a vacuum, which was there in terms
mm,
of, things that could have happened differently had my father been alive. Now,
mm,
I'll give you very small instances. For example, at the beginning of an academic session, when you have
mm,
to purchase your books and school textbooks for the new academic year, every year, in my case, there used to be a delay. It was not because the intention of my uncles or my grandparents was not there to
mm,
get me educated. It was just because it was not being prioritized. There were too many things in the family. There were too many relationships. Everyone was busy with their own family within that joint house. So there are these moments which today, as I reflect upon, are a bit of a vacuum, right?
mm,
Um, but to be fair to my uncles and to my grandfather in particular, all of this, although small, did not come in the way of my education or my upbringing or my culture. So I am very, very grateful to my extended family to help me, my elder brother, my elder sister, and my mother, and not feel the large vacuum of losing a dad. And today, as I'm sure you are also a father, and many of us in our age group, some of
mm,
these things are non-negotiable. You will not just get the textbooks and the academic stuff for your children ahead of time, but you will
mm,
ensure that they have the best of things in life,
mm,
which even they are not asking for. So I think
mm,
that is what is a little bit of a gap for me. But beyond that, I would like to take the positive aspect of the joint family back then
mm,
and the lesson which I just reflected upon, which is the world is
mm,
a family. If you look around you, there are too many people to fill that vacuum or gap in life. Whether
mm.
it is in the shape of cousins, it is in the shape of friends or extended family members and uncles and aunties. The kind of birthday parties we used to celebrate then, unimaginable. Today, in
Mm.
nuclear families, you call 10 guests at home and you are hassled, right? So yeah, I would like to rather look upon the positive side of that rather than upon it.
So, Abhishek, today, when you look back, what are those initial beliefs that you picked up then that continue to drive you today as well? So, one is that this whole universe is one big family. That's what you just mentioned. What are the other beliefs that you picked up? It could be the connection that you developed for yourself, with others, with life, with world, with cousins, with relatives.
If I look deeply back then, and you're taking me back to my childhood days, I will reflect upon my mother, who has influenced me the most in my life. And
Mm,
as I think about her today, she has truly been an epitome of Ma Durga. You
mm,
know, during those times, to stay in a joint family, which was traditionally very patriarchal by
mm,
design and upbringing. And for a woman who was not financially independent to raise three children all alone,
mm,
my mother had to don multiple hats, from a disciplined eldest daughter in law to take care of her in law's health and medicines, to the person in charge of a huge kitchen. I remember close to 100 chapatis used to be cooked every single meal, right? To managing servants, groceries, vegetables, and in the middle of all of that, to also play the
mm,
role of an adoring and loving mother. And
mm.
despite all the hardships, because she lost her husband when I think she was just 32 years of age,
So sorry.
despite all the hardships, and with a very tight extra money she used to get, she managed to get me formally trained in arts, drama, tabla, swimming, and many more. And she was very, very conscious of the fact that, there has to be a right equilibrium between the left brain and the right brain, and the
Mm,
right brain has to be equally nurtured. So imagine
mm,
the vision, the sacrifice, the selfless sacrifice of my mother. And I think that has taught me an invaluable lesson, which has stayed with me ever since then. that life will always be a roller coaster ride. The
Yeah.
good times will not last long. In fact, if the good times are lasting long, they are an early warning signal that the bad times will come soon, right?
Yeah.
So if we can maintain an equilibrium of moods, sentiments, being in the knowledge, right actions, and maintaining relevant right relationships, basically good karma, which is devoid of expectation of results. And if we can do this when the
Mm.
times are good and equally when the times are bad, most of us do it when the times are bad, right? We have to come back quickly. But when you can do it when the times are good as well, then I think you have truly lived a life. And in
Yeah.
the the precious gem of learning here for me is how are you able to always remain in the present moment,
Mm.
right?
Just out of curiosity, Abhishek, you mentioned something so profound that continue to invest in your karmas and devoid of any results and being in the present moment. What led you to come up with this belief and follow these principles in your life?
All of us in our lifetimes will face challenges, right? And I truly believe that how you overcome the challenge is a reflection of not what you do differently during that challenge, or not what you incrementally add on to your value systems or belief systems or actions. It is about you being aware that that challenge is a part of life, right? You have been sent to the world and you have
Yeah.
been given this body to face challenges,
Mm.
and with the belief that you are capable of dealing with that challenge. I firmly
Mm.
believe that if a challenge was thrown upon me in my life, whether in a personal capacity or in a professional capacity, whoever threw that challenge to me, and my belief is God, he was very well aware that I had the capability, the competency, the willpower, dedication, and motivation to overcome that challenge. And
Mm.
therefore, that challenge came my way.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if you are living life with that belief system,
That
that
somebody is taking care of us.
somebody is taking care of you, I think living in the present moment will help you overcome it rather than doing things differently or doing things additionally.
Yeah. Yeah. In the morning, I was reflecting on one hand, we can operate from a space of that I have to control everything in my life, or I can live from a space of surrender. Either I can live from a space that I am the creator of my own life, or uh, the whole universe is one big family and I'm playing my own role.
So true.
I'm playing my own part. There are two different ways to live your life. Abhishek, help me understand from somebody who lost his father very early in his life to where you are today. You are one of the most celebrated professionals in the startup world. What were those defining moments that helped you to draw this trajectory and be where you are today?
Well, I will gotta pick up two defining moments. The first
Mm.
will be a professional one, and the second is more a personal one. I think the first defining moment for me in my life was my decision to pick up a job with Hindustan Unilever Limited at Lucknow. Right.
Mm.
Until then, I had done decent finance roles and jobs at ITC and
Mm.
Abbott, which were very core to the finance fraternity, right? Very, very
Yeah.
typical audit, accounting, controls, taxation, and so on and so forth. But the Unilever job opened up an entirely new dimension to me. And the
Mm.
world of true finance business partnering, working with sales and marketing teams, being out there in the markets with the distributors and the retailers to drive profitable growth for the company.
Mm.
And this was the time when Mr. Sanjeev Mehta, the current outgoing CEO of HUL, had brilliantly conceptualized WIMI, which is winning in many Indias. His thought and dream was that India is not just one India. There is India in every state, and there is Bharat, and we need to go and look at Central India, especially, which has been ignored for a very long time. And I was chosen to become the first finance head of that sales branch. Now,
Mm.
why this decision was a difficult one? A, when it comes to a decision to relocate to Lucknow from a Mumbai or a Bangalore, it is not easy when your spouse is a company secretary and a lawyer. right? It was an extremely tough decision, but I chose to move ahead with it with the promise to my wife that she can relocate with my son only if I am able to find a suitable job for her at Lucknow. And that ultimately did happen, although with a gap of around 6 to 7 months. But this decision changed my corporate career for good. Under 15 months of me becoming the sales finance head of Central Branch, I was elevated to become the finance head for three out of the five branches for Hindustan Lever, which is Central Branch, North Branch, and West Branch. Working with three regional leadership teams to actually spur the FMCG consumption penetration in every household of India and Bharat. And ever since then, I have always done only business finance facing roles, and I have truly enjoyed being in the driver's seat at business.
Just out of curiosity, just picking up the thread from here only, Abhishek, what led you to make that decision? That was not an easy decision, right? One, you are relocating to a different place, and that too in Lucknow. Second is you have your wife and your son. Asking them to come to relocate to the other place. What led you to take that decision?
In my mind, there were two things playing. One, where do I see myself 5 years from now? So I always aspired to be a generalist, a business person, and become a business facing finance head, which is helping drive growth and profitability, and not just looking into accounts and controls and risk. I'm not saying none of these roles are interesting or they have their own merits. But this opportunity very early on in my career, and that too for a company like HUL, which defines the FMCG consumption pattern in India, and for a CEO who was personally invested in that plan, right? Mr. Sanjay Mehta, a visionary, and I'm sure you have read and heard about him. So all of these things were the first reason where I said, let me just get into it and take the plunge, because and for the business also to have a sales finance head who is invested in growth and who is truly doing business partnering, because back then a lot of these traditional organizations did speak about business partnering, but very few actually knew how to enable that or how to unblock it or how to actually implement it. So it was an industry first move, and it was an industry first move for a company of its scale and size, with the kind of promise and backing from the CEO's office. So that was extremely interesting and exciting. And the second reason, big reason, personal reason, I wanted to get out of my comfort zone. I was excelling in what I was doing, right? Whether it was accounts payable, accounts receivable, record to report, order to cash, make to deliver, I knew it all. However, I had never worked with sales. I had never been in the market. I had never interacted with distributors. I did not know what is selling and why. I had no clue in terms of what it means to look at growth and become the reason for growth in the branch. So, yeah, these were the two main reasons, Gaurav, why I took that.
So, what I'm listening is rather, I heard three reasons. The first one is the person who's driving that change, right? In this case, Mr. Mehta was driving that. And the visionary that he was, you were willing to be a
Yes.
part of that initiative, right? And the two things, as you mentioned, is alignment with where you would like to be as an individual and willingness to come out of your comfort zone and do things that you have not done in the past. Is my understanding right?
Yes, absolutely.
So that has been one of the defining moments. And then you said that something in your personal life as well that defined this for you.
So the personal life story is it's a really traumatic one. You know, every time I go back to those days mentally, I am reminded of what it takes for us to understand the real meaning of life. Life is very fragile. What does it mean to live it fully, right? On public forums, I've never spoken about this story, so you're the first person I'm talking about it to. This is on the 5th of July, 2017. My life fell apart, and my wife Rashmi suffered a near fatal brain hemorrhage, right? And for a person who has been very healthy all her life, she has never had to visit hospital other than my childbirth, right? So, and the kind of brain hemorrhage that it was in the middle of the night, 12 midnight, a very rare phenomena that affects just about 0.025% of population. And for people who undergo this kind of a hemorrhage, only 20% survive. And for those who are lucky to survive, it takes a minimum of 3 years for a semblance of slight recovery, which means that you are reborn. You will have to learn again how to walk, talk, eat, spell, write, all of it. But in the case of Rashmi, she was back under 9 months. This is truly, truly miraculous. And we were under the guidance of the country's top neurosurgeons in Bombay. And they admitted that this is really miraculous for her to come back so soon. So, I learned two defining life lessons. One is resilience and willpower, which my wife Rashmi demonstrated. A very, very strong resilience and willpower to come back strongly. And it was a phase when my 7-year-old son was teaching his own mother ABCD. So you can imagine, right? And the second life lesson is the positivity or the yes attitude that plays an essential role in producing what I call positive neuropeptides. Now, if you don't have a positive attitude, it will never help cleanse your consciousness. It will never help control your thoughts. It will not, it is not good enough to manage your mind and incorporate positive changes in your lifestyle. And post that incident, our entire family has been a very, very different family. Not just my immediate family, but the extended family. And we have been living a very, very holistic lifestyle, which is a very good balance between physical, mental, and spiritual growth. So that's been my second defining moment in life. And post that moment, I have noticed that everything has been launched like a rocket pad, right? Whether it is the spiritual aspect of understanding life, or whether it is the professional corporate aspect of promotions and growth, or it is the way my wife Rashmi has come back again, and today she runs a holistic lifestyle store, and she cures people through healing therapies, and is bringing back the traditional knowledge of Ayurveda, naturopathy, and a lot of these hidden Indian traditional gems to cure people. So I think that has been a truly, truly defining moment.
Abhishek, help me understand. You said that your 7-year-old son was teaching his mother A, B, C, D, E. How was it for you? How was it for a father to look at his son teaching ABC to his mother? What is it that you were going through as an individual?
My son was in the middle of a lot of trauma himself, right? And actually, with my CFO's advice, Mr. PB Balaji, back then, he was the CFO of Hindustan Unilever. He actually told me that your son needs to express his emotions. And he has gone into a shell. And I think there is a requirement for you to take him to a psychologist, a child psychologist, and just help him open up. Those were the times when there were so many family members who had come from every part of the country to Bombay to help us. I used to be with my wife in Bombay Hospital, and we used to live in Hiranandani. And my son was being taken care of by my mother and Rashmi's mother. So he didn't have his parents by his side, right? So during those times, when I got Rashmi back home, he had actually become the guardian of his own mother. Yeah. So whether it was in the form of teaching her the basics of ABCD 1, 2, 3, 4, or helping her eat with a spoon without spilling food, or playing simple games with her, I think he did it all. So he was playing three roles, if you ask me. One, he became the guardian for his own mother. Second, he became a friend to his own mother. And third, he also was expecting motherly love, right? Which was difficult for him to get, which I was trying to fill in.
And what were you going through?
So I had become both mom and dad for him. I took a break from work. I took a sabbatical for 4 to 5 months. My office was extremely supportive, right? Even during those days and post the sabbatical. And I remember there were WhatsApp groups where students' mothers were there, and I was the only dad in that WhatsApp group. And I used to attend all his meetings, parent-teacher meetings, and take care of him like a mother and a dad. So I was doubling up. I was just helping my family and myself come back.
And how were you looking at life? Didn't you question yourself that why do I need to go through all this? I went through something similar when I was 3, and I'm going through again through the eyes of my son. Why? Didn't you ask this question?
No, I didn't ask this question. I was just grateful that Rashmi was back in a very miraculous manner. Um, and even the doctors, the top neurosurgeons in the country had admitted that the way she has come back, not just coming back to life, but coming back to a, a near semblance of her pre-hemorrhage version in under 9 months. So more than complaining or questioning why me, I just looked at it in a manner that there has to be some reason. The universe has conspired for Rashmi to come back. There has to be a reason, and the universe will ensure that Rashmi creates positive impact to the society at large in the new avatar, which he is, by the way, currently doing. And I just wanted to go with the flow and be with her when she needed me. And the two aspects of resilience, which I spoke about, and the yes attitude, I think that was a learning opportunity, very rarely in your life. Because when I was 3 and I lost my dad, I hardly remembered it. I hardly missed him. But here where I was with only one son and a wife and a very happy family, a healthy family, to undergo all of this, then you actually feel the pain, right? However, when you reflect upon it in life, very few opportunities you will get to demonstrate resilience of this nature. When people talk about resilience, it is about, okay, I missed my month number. I have to be resilient and come back. But when you think deeply in terms of coming back to life, starting life afresh, and giving life an entirely new meaning and dimension, that is what is resilience for me.
Yeah.
I just looked at it in a very positive way to grab hold of that opportunity and learn from it.
At times we tend to take life for granted. Everything is as if we are entitled to the good lifestyle. We are entitled for all the good things in our life without realizing that we are here just for a very short span of time. We are not at all entitled to anything, not at all. So, Abhishek,
True.
from a world where you saw so much happening in your personal life to now where you're working with startups, what kind of mindset shift do you need to bring in yourself on day-to-day basis so that you continue to stay grounded, operate from a space of shukrana, being grateful, and yet adapt to the culture of what we call as hustling culture? How does that transition happen for you?
So it's a very good question. And to be honest, when I joined Flipkart, the first 6 months, I didn't know what was happening. I was not used to that kind of a culture. So I think, the primary drivers that people should be aware of when working in startups, and what is the kind of mindset shift that you need to not just be aware of, but actually demonstrate. One is you have to be wedded to the vision of your organization. Back then, when we were studying, the perception towards entrepreneurship was not very positive, right? Everyone, parent, in fact, wanted a safety net where the child has a good academic track record and you will get into an MNC and your life is secured. I think today's generation, thankfully, has got this very different vision and positive perception towards entrepreneurship. So, A, you have to be really wedded to the vision of your organization, and you have to, in your mind, treat yourself as the entrepreneur. There are these rare breed of very brave, courageous, extremely passionate entrepreneurs who are today interested in answering a market demand or solving
mm,
a problem through very innovative ways. So,
mm,
how are you in your mind also working like an entrepreneur? That's the first trait. The second is innovation, right? If you are very hungry to solve a problem in a manner where innovation is the core of the solution, and
mm,
innovation is not just thinking but doing, right? Innovation is not just a follow through, but the commercialization of a good idea. Then
mm.
actually look up to a startup and join it.
Yeah.
First is, the third is the customer first approach. You know, large organizations assume that what they will produce is what the customer wants, but a startup will never do that, right? And the last and but the most important trait is risk taking and embracing challenges head on. Today's generation wants to become a part of a team very early on in their careers where they can create positive disruption for the society. So I
Mm.
think that's the mindset shift that people need to be aware of if they want to join a startup.
So, what I heard you saying is innovation, customer first, and risk taking ability and embracing challenges to disrupt the status quo.
Yes.
And how was it for you to transition from HUL and getting into Flipkart? How was it for you? And especially when there's so much happening in your personal life as well.
Yeah, it was not easy. See, at Unilever, things have a process, a structured way of doing it.
Yeah.
Uh, it may take time. However, in a startup world, and especially Flipkart, there is a lot of agility. We openly advocate risk taking.
Mm,
Uh, there is a lot of customer centricity. I'm not saying Unilever doesn't have customer centricity.
mm,
Um, and the speed with which decisions are taken, with the aspect of fail fast, learn fast, and
mm,
move on quickly. The aspiration or the urge to launch something for the first time in India, I think these are the key differentiators for
mm.
an organization like Flipkart. To be honest, it took me about 4 5 months to get into the grind. Um, and from there on, there was nothing that I did not miss or did not like. It has been a
Nothing
very,
stopping you as well.
yes, yes.
Yeah. Was there anything that you were expecting that you would get once you get to a CXO position? These are the byproducts that I would be getting that you did not receive.
In the time of my career journey spent as CFO thus far, I have experienced joys of success. I have also experienced the collective might to come back strongly post a relatively poor month. I have experienced the tension and uneasiness of agility and risk taking when it comes to taking resource allocation decisions, which is generally not the case in a structured organization because your plans are quite robust. However, here, if you have to be agile and you have to operate from the mindset, very high agility on resource allocations to always ensure we are ahead of the game when it comes to customer, when it comes to innovation, when it comes to demand, when it comes to white spaces on growth, and so on and so forth, right? And a little bit of tension to undo what you have just decided 2 days back. I have experienced that. I've
Mm,
also felt the euphoria of success almost emanating the inner bliss of a founder or an entrepreneur. So, all in all, to my mind, I don't think there is anything which I was expecting and I have not experienced yet. In fact, on the contrary, I have experienced much more than what I could have imagined. So, it's been a really, really fruitful journey so far.
do you see a connection between what you went through and what you are going through today and the way you show up in difficult situations, the way you deal with your day to day challenges in the organization? Do you see any challenge there, any connection there?
Huge connection, huge connection.
Mm-hmm.
I have completely changed as a person. See,
Mm-hmm.
the magnitude or the definition of challenge itself in my mind has seen a sea change. When you face such personal life episodes of death, near death, understanding life closely, understanding true meaning of life. After all of this, the problems themselves, when it comes to work life or when it comes to, mundane challenges like a traffic in Bangalore, or we missing our growth numbers, attrition, or anything to do with a relatively poor performance, etc.,
Yeah.
etc.,
Yeah.
they become very small, right? They
Mm.
become very small. And therefore, what happens is when you want to tackle them,
Mm.
you are relatively operating out of mind space, which is peaceful, which is
Mm.
calm, which is
Mm.
not stressed, a mind free from confusion, a mind free from stress.
Mm.
And I can tell you the best decisions or the best quality decisions are made when the mind is peaceful,
Mm.
right? So the quality of the decision making to solve that problem therefore gets enhanced, right?
Mm.
Firstly, they are not real problems, right? When you compare to these things that I've already experienced, so you are very calm and composed. And secondly, in that state of being calm and composed, the quality of your decision making to solve that seemingly big problem for someone is far higher.
Yeah. And what kind of practices do you have to heal those traumatic experiences in your life? Because I know of people, they have gone through something similar in their lives and they continue to operate from that space of fear, insecurities. All the people that I love, they would be taken away from me. And thus they find it extremely difficult to trust this universe, trust life, trust people. And on the contrary, here is Abhishek, who's operating from a space of being grateful, who's operating from a space is being positive. What kind of practices have helped you?
Well, see, there are three or four practices that have helped me. One
Mm.
is definitely meditation, right? Every
Mm.
single morning I wake up and I meditate. And meditation actually helps me bring about a mind which is free from stress. And it helps me just go into a space which is hollow and empty.
Mm.
The second practice which I do every single morning is something which is called as Sudarshan Kriya, which is a breathing technique which is advocated by the art of living. One reason for, by the way, for me to relocate to Bangalore was also because of the fact that Art of Living has an international center in Bangalore.
Yeah.
And we have our own Gurudev, Sri Ravi Shankar, who we follow. So that is the second practice, the Sudarshan Kriya. It is truly magical.
Mm.
Uh, and I have been to the ashram multiple times, at least, twice a year. I make it a point to go to the ashram to attend their advanced silence programs where you have to be
Mm.
in silence for 3 to 4 days. And
Mm.
silence is not just verbal silence, it is written silence. It is any form of communication, even through eye
Mm.
contact. And your phones are taken away. Can you imagine a world where you are living away from your phone for 3 long days and only within yourself? So it's extremely profound, and it helps you get deep into yourself and introspect. And it is like you recharge your phone every single morning. Your soul needs recharging twice a year minimum. It's food for the soul. So that's the other way that I look at some of these techniques to stay within this frame of mind.
Yeah.
And the last is just knowledge. Just be in the knowledge, just reflect upon it and implement it. It's very easy to be knowledgeable, but true
Mm.
wisdom is implementation of that knowledge.
Yeah. And what I'm listening is a common thread between meditation, mindfulness, or being in silence, or putting your knowledge into practice. I think one of the common threads is connection with your own self.
Sure.
It's like coming back home.
Yes.
You go out, wander the world, look at all the glittering uh, episodes of this world. You look at the numbers, you look at which startup is doing really well, where to invest those skyscrapers, and then you say, now it's time to come back home. What's
Yeah.
happening to this mansion? What's happening to this land? What's happening to me as an individual? Now, coming back to the CXO role that you are playing, Abhishek, having walked this path now there are two parallel paths that I see you walking on. One is the path of connecting with your own self, having your own mindfulness, meditation practices, and On the contrary, you're also walking on the path of being a CXO. What kind of myths that people tend to carry
Mm.
for CXOs or for the CXO roles that are absolutely not true at your level?
Well, the first myth, Gaurav, is according to me at this level, people think that we know it all. That is not true. I look up to advice, guidance, and suggestions from everyone, including a fresher in my team. And innovation comes with not just experience but with novelty. So that's the first myth. I don't think we have all the answers. We can look at the problems differently. We can forecast a problem that this can be a real threat. However, when it comes to solutioning, I think we will have to not just look within but look out for help. We don't know it all. I think that's the first myth. The second myth is most problems, the solution of the problem can be data led, right? And as a CFO, I am naturally inclined to go with data trends and analytics to base all my resource allocation decisions. However, when it comes to, you know, experimenting, or when it comes to innovation, or when it comes to trying something new, even the CFO will have to go with a gut and an intuition on some aspects of critical decision making. So not everything will be data based. And the third, I think, will be to get out of your comfort zone. I would say the safety net syndrome, right? Um, there is a myth that, typically in large organizations, not startups, there is a safety net against competition, there is a safety net against regulation, there is a safety net against digital disruption. The risk actually lies when the CSOs of fairly large organizations tend to believe that they are indispensable, and everything else in the ecosystem will actually come together to continue to let them grow unhindered.
Mm.
I think competitive intensity, regulatory frameworks, and digital first thinking always can help CXOs to stay ahead of the curve, and they will be forced to plan and design for it. So I
Yeah,
think these are the three top things that come to my mind, Gaurav.
yeah. And I just love it when you said that at times we need to look out. At times we need to let go of the safety net. At times we need to look at what else could be done at this point in time. And, in fact, something that struck me during our leadership development journey that we were on to, Abhishek, 3.5, 4 years back, that your willingness to ask for help was so visible. And at any point in time in all our interactions, you never came across as if you're operating from a space of that I know it all.
Mm.
How do you continue to stay grounded and operate from this curious mindset, from this mindset that I don't know it all? And how do you continue to remind you of this?
Yeah, so it's a very, very good question, and I am brought back to my coaching journey, and thank you once again, Gaurav, for being a wonderful coach during those sessions that you conducted for us back then at Flipkart. I think if as leaders we are cognizant of the fact that every individual has an immense potential, right? And coaching is a journey which can actually help us reach our full potential. As leaders, I don't think we should shy away from the fact that there are these internal barriers or limitations which are ingrained within us, right? Which have become thick bones for us, right? Very difficult to change. However, if you embrace coaching and if you are willing to change, then it is a very, very scientific manner in which the coach will help you identify your own inner beliefs, patterns, behaviors which are limiting your own growth, whether it is professional growth, personal growth, or spiritual growth. And I think a good coach works like a mirror. Um, a good coach will help you go deep within yourself to introspect and come back. And this journey can be life transforming. I have had the pleasure to work with you, Gaurav. I've also had the pleasure to work with another coach, Mr. Amit Vip, before I became a CFO, and very recently Mr. Srinivasan after I became a CFO, right? So I think it has been a profound journey. If you are willing to change, if you have the determination and belief and self-confidence, please first admit the need to change. Then align your actions which are needed to change. Finally, monitor those actions without any prejudice and with full honesty. And I think it can be a life transforming journey.
And I would say, Abhishek, in your life, there have been two more people who have been your coaches. I'm really inspired by Rashmi and your son. And I think for as long as they are on your side, even sky is not the limit for you.
Well, that's very kind of you, Gaurav.
And so today, having walked this path, Abhishek, those ups and downs of life, personal life as well as professional life, what do you know for sure with 100% certainty?
Wow, what a question. See, what I know with 100% certainty, I can start off with a very philosophical answer, which is about the fundamental belief that I have about the soul or the spirit, which is ever pure and eternal, even after death. And the other thing that I know with 100% certainty is whilst you are living a life in this physical form and shape, you have been blessed to be born as a human being. How do you want to live that life? How do you want to make use of this blissful opportunity? And how do you want to create a difference and positive impact to this planet? There can be a very interesting aspect to it. You know, most people very young on in their lives want to chase wealth and compromise their health. So fundamentally, what I'm 100% certain about is, to get back to your question,
Mm,
what is the fundamental belief that you have in terms of how you want to lead this life?
mm,
Physical well-being, which is a disease-free body. We spoke about it earlier.
yeah.
Mental well-being, which is, a confusion and a stress-free mind.
Mm,
And spiritual well-being, which is when you feel one with everybody, right? When the whole world is your family. I think these are the key essentials to lead a blissful life. So even
mm.
though you have the awareness that the soul is ever eternal, pure and blissful, however, you have been given this wonderful opportunity to come to this planet. How do you want to leave a positive impact?
What a
I
beautiful question to leave our audience with. How would you like to live your life? Thank you so much, Abhishek, for this wonderful, wonderful, profound question. And thank you for being such a wonderful guest and sharing and pouring your heart out.
thank you, Gaurav. It has been a really interesting conversation. And yeah, another opportunity to introspect and yeah, be on the path. Thank you so much.